This is the new Audi e-tron Sportback. Now, while the e-tron is not new and has been around since 2018, the Sportback is new for the 2022 model year. This model here is a 55 Sportback with the S-Line package on it. Let's take a closer look and see what it's about. The Audi e-tron is the first series production full electric vehicle from the firm. And to differentiate it from the rest of their portfolio, they've given it a few EV-specific styling cues. The one that you're going to notice first is the e-tron specific daytime running light markers. Rather attractive, and they're combined with the matrix LED headlamps. A very clever system, but nothing new. Ordinarily, the e-trons would have this octagonal grille of Audi's finished off in platinum grey. This one, however, has the black package plus on it, which means that all that grey disappears and is replaced with a gloss black. Looks particularly good when you combine it with the S-Line kit and all these big vents. Down the side, you're going to get 21-inch alloy wheels, and this one has the virtual digital mirrors, which replaces your wing mirrors with cameras for a display in either door card. This 55 Sportback S-Line is powered by two motors, one on the front axle and one on the rear axle. The rear axle one does more of the work to give it a rear-wheel drive bias, but it can vector the torque backwards and forwards as is needed for a proper quattro system. These motors receive their charge from a 95 kilowatt-hour battery pack. When tested on the WLTP cycle, Audi says that this can provide between 375 and 445 kilometers range. Of course, depending on how you drive, how many accessories you use, and what the traffic is like. But fear not, because you can charge it at home using the supplied home charging brick with a regular 220 volt outlet, or you can head on over to one of the public charging stations and plug it in with a regular Type 2 plug. On board, it will accept 11 kilowatts AC charge, but if you find a DC charger, this one can go all the way to 150 kilowatts. It's still very Audi in here. Anybody that's driven a modern Audi will be familiar with the three-screen arrangement. So there's the driver information display, which has been simplified here. You've still got multiple views, and the controls are rather familiar. Really nice that they've simplified the operation of that one. There's the main infotainment screen, which is a beautiful resolution, full touch screen, full color, great navigation with satellite, and it responds really quickly. Of course, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And then you have the third screen, the screen that's down here. And I like the way that Audi's actually separated it with two screens, like Jaguar and Land Rover have done, and not like Mercedes-Benz, where they've dumped it all into one screen. Because this down here is your HVAC, your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It's also going to be your text input for when you need to enter in addresses and the likes. The bit that has really changed is this transmission tunnel. It doesn't, of course, have a transmission, but they've still kept it rather high, and it's got sort of floaty elements to it, a little futuristic, and that's compounded by this little spar up here, which is actually your gear selector, because a push with your thumb will select reverse, and a pull with your finger will give you drive. Push on the side and you get park. But it's fairly familiar. There's, of course, loads of storage, wireless charging, cup holders, and USBs out the wazoo. It's nice and spacious in the back as well. Look, I've got loads of legroom here. Headroom is fairly generous, and shoulder room feels as generous as well. We've got 4-zone climate control, so we can switch it on here and control them individually. Fun times for the kids to play with. I am quite liking this contrasting upholstery, but that is an optional extra. Now, as much space as we've got here, apparently there's even more in the boot. In the boot, you're going to get 615 litres of boot space behind the electric tailgate. And despite the fact that it is a Sportback, it's quite a substantial amount of space here. Lift up this lower hatch and you've got even more storage space here next to the spare wheel. If you want even more, head up front and there's a bit of a frunk there. Now, we're storing the charging cables there, but you could use it for another bag quite comfortably. Of course, split folding rear seats, 40-20-40, very handy. With this being the 55 model, it is the high-powered version. Not the highest power, but it is a high-power version. which means that you're going to get 300 kilowatts on tap, albeit only momentarily because of its boost function. You're also going to get 664 Newton meters of torque, and that's fantastic. Of course, EVs are known for having that instantaneous torque, and at any speed you put your foot down and it genuinely goes. It goes so well. Woo! Need to watch the speed limit there. So easy to get yourself into trouble with an EV. Now take this sort of power and combine it with a quattro all-wheel drive system, a motor on the front wheel and a motor on the rear wheel, and it'll do 0 to 100 in 5.7 seconds, and onto a top speed of 200 kilometers an hour, which is more than enough. Of course, driving it with a heavy foot is going to see that range tumble. I do like the way that it drives. It's quiet, it's comfortable, it's got air suspension, and with Drive Select you can change from your dynamic to your comfort to your eco mode, so you can tailor it to just the type of drive that you're wanting from a vehicle. I'm just not sold on these mirrors though. You see, it's a parallax issue. When you move your head you can see a different image in a real mirror. Down here, well, that's the only visual you've got. Moving your head doesn't change your perspective, and it makes it a little tough to gauge the distance. Your depth perception is made a little wonky. With over 400 kilometers of range, the Audi e-tron 55 Sportback S-Line is a suitable candidate for a daily drive, for a commuter vehicle, with the longer drive possible if you're prepared to stop at one of the multitude of public charging stations along the major arterials in South Africa. Of course, this network is going to expand and grow, so it's only going to be a matter of time before you find one at every corner. This doesn't come cheap though, and this exact model here starts out at 2.15 million rand. Of course, throw in a couple of options. We've got things like the roof liner, the virtual mirrors, and it hikes that price up. But it is competitive, because if you compare it against the likes of the Jaguar I-Pace or the BMW iX, it's right on the money. And it's very similar to those offerings. It's not really doing anything different that jumps off the page, but there's no real shortcomings that leaves you wanting more.